Prithvi Shantimrantarikshagam Shantir Dyav Shantir Disha Shantiravantaram Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantish Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantir Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantir Shantireva Shanti Shantir Me Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santo, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyanto, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyato, sarvas sadbuddhimapnoto, sarvas sarvatra nandato. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayedi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Te Namam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. In the last class, we saw what often gets described in the Gita as the greatest verse, or the Charama Shloka, in which, according to some students of Gita, the highest teaching of Krishna is given. That's one viewpoint. Today we begin with the concluding section of the book, and it follows the traditional layout of the Vedanta literature. Most Vedanta texts would end with what is called in Sanskrit Phalashrutihi. Phalashrutihi means miscellaneous matters related with the book that we have just are about to finish studying. Phala means fruit. So what will you get as a result of studying this book? And sometimes these kind of verses come even at the end of a hymn, traditional hymns. And the reason is to provide an incentive. If we have to wonder, like, why should I want to study this book? Usually, if you go towards the end, these classical texts will usually give you, well, this is what you will benefit, this is what you will get if you study the book. It's sometimes like we want little children to do something, and something that they may not particularly enjoy doing. And then you say, well, if you do this, then I'll give you a candy. Or if you do this, I'll give you this. So that's some kind of an incentive is provided which makes them do it. And so many of these texts therefore have that. So that's primarily what this portion of the Gita will do today, in addition to how this has to be studied and so on. So let's begin with verse 67. Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrusave vacham na cha mam yobhyasuyati. Never should this be declared by you to one who is devoid of austerities or who is not a devotee, nor to one who does not wish to hear it, nor one who cavils at me. One general comment. When you read a verse like this, it goes a little bit contrary to our modern sensibilities, when it is, well, if it's the highest teaching, spread it far and wide. Let everyone hear about it. That's what we would normally say. On the other hand, here Krishna is putting conditions, telling Arjuna that when you now speak about this teaching to others, and not just to Arjuna, indirectly to all of us who are studying this, that who should we go and discuss this teaching with? Remember this dialogue that occurred on the battlefield. It was a very special form of teaching. It was actually just a one-on-one teaching between Krishna and Arjuna. And it's understandable that Krishna would think that afterwards, Arjuna, because remember, all these thousands of soldiers are waiting. They know that these two people are saying something, but it was not broadcast on a loudspeaker or anything, so they have no idea what's going on. And so it's not unusual to think, well, afterwards, at least some people would have gone to Arjuna and said, hey, what were you all speaking for a long time? We were all waiting for the war to begin, and there's this big dialogue going on. And even if somebody doesn't ask, for Arjuna say, oh, this is what I heard. When you hear something exciting, something wonderful, there is this inherent desire in us to share it with someone. Some people do it just to show off, just to say, oh, how special I am. This is what Krishna taught me. But some others might do it just with the attitude of service. Here is something I heard, and I found it beneficial. You may find it beneficial too. And so what Krishna is saying here is, should this desire come in you, what are the things I need to keep in mind? So here, never should this be declared by you, that is to Arjuna, but again indirectly all of us, to one who is devoid of austerities, or one who doesn't have the necessary inner discipline, one who lacks that sense of devotion, and one who does not and then don't force it down anybody. Sometimes if you might just find sometimes people who are over enthusiastic about spiritual life, they're so excited about it, they want to share it with their friends. Their desire to share is more than the desire of the listener to listen. And so don't force it on others. That's what he's saying. And one who cavils at me, abhyasuya, what it really means is that if someone is like, why should I believe it just because Krishna says it? Here is some person is said to have said something 2000 years ago, and now you want me to believe it? Now, if that's the attitude of a person, what Krishna is saying is, you might have the best intentions in sharing this teaching with others or discussing it with them. But if they don't have inner discipline, if they lack that love for God, if they have no interest in this, or if they don't have any trust in the source from which it comes. Now, your sharing this to them is not going to benefit them. Because these are the things, contrary-wise we can say, in order for me to benefit from this teaching, I must have some inner discipline. I must have basic love for God. I would have interest to hear it. That's why this class, all of you have come here. If you had no interest in knowing about the Gita, you wouldn't be here. Now, we are also streaming it live. Again, I would hope and imagine that all those who are taking the trouble in their homes and listening to it are interested in it. Otherwise, why would they? They could have done 1,000 other things. So, by and large, what we are also trying to do here is making it available to people who are interested, and to the extent they have inner discipline within them, love for God within them, shraddha or faith in the source, to that extent they will benefit from it. If someone doesn't have these things, if we don't understand the teaching, that's bad enough. But not much harm is done. Well, you won't understand it. What is worse is we misunderstand it. And that's the great danger. I have heard, and I'm sure many of you would have heard it also, when you, for instance, see the teaching here in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, when Krishna says, when he's speaking about the Atman, the self does not kill, and the self cannot be killed. So if someone wants to go and hurt someone, and they can just pick up this teaching and say, well, I am the Atman. The Atman can't do anything. So it's easy to misinterpret the teaching, or easy to use it for one's own convenience. Or a little earlier, a few weeks ago, when we studied that verse in which Krishna says, God dwells in the hearts of all of us. and we are like these puppets going round. Now again, that kind of a teaching with that faith and inner discipline, we will understand the context and in what sense that teaching was given. Otherwise, people might want to not take responsibility for their actions. We might do something which we should not do and say, well, what can I do? God sitting in my heart did it. I'm just an instrument. So in order for that kind of misapplication or wrong application of the teaching should not occur, Krishna is putting this condition that be sure, make sure with whom you are discussing. And it's not just that you have to take a book, the Gita as a book, and discuss it with someone. You may not have any book in hand, but even if you're discussing just the ideas from this book, if you discuss it with anyone and everyone indiscriminately, the results may not be very helpful. Not only it may not help the other person, it could potentially hurt you, because you say someone who has no belief, no trust, no interest in all of this, and you say, here is this thing called the Atman, la da 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 da, you tell that person, and the other person says something completely contrary, and that puts the doubts and questions and that you never had in your mind, puts new doubts in your mind. So it actually hurts your own study and it doesn't benefit the other person. In other words, just be careful. And in general, we can say this is not applicable only to the Gita teaching, pretty much to anything. If you are a big baseball enthusiast and you go on discussing what the Red Sox schedule is and what the hopes are and who is going to win, who is not going to win, to someone who just hates baseball or who doesn't like it, that conversation is not going to go any further. You might lose a friend actually if that person says, oh, every time this person comes, he just talks about baseball and I hate baseball. So again, sometimes people who are in take spiritual life seriously, their enthusiasm for spiritual life, they want to push it on other people. And so Krishna is saying, don't be so aggressive. What we can do, let our life speak more than our words. So if these teachings resonate with our head and heart, and if we try to live according to these teachings, just life speaks more powerfully than words. So even your friends who may not be interested in spiritual life at all, if they see that you're always calm, you're always kind, you're always helpful, that you are able to remain grounded in spite of the upheavals, in spite of the ups and downs that inevitably occur in life, both internal and external, you still have that calming, loving, peaceful presence, then of course people would want to be with you, and people might be saying, hey, how do you manage to remain so calm? They can say, oh, there is this book called the Gita. That may be a way for you to share, but just don't go and push yourself on others. It's pretty obvious what Krishna is saying, and I'm just kind of elaborating it more than it's necessary, but I think you get the point. Verse 68. Ya imam paramam guhyam madbhakteshvabhidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame vaishatya samshayaha. He who will impart this profound secret to my devotees has supreme devotion to me, and being free from doubt comes to me alone. So after having told in the earlier verse with whom you should avoid sharing this teaching, now he's saying with whom you should share this teaching. And he says, it's a profound secret. By secret, as I said before, it's not that
it's a secret like people have secrets, not that kind of a secret, but that its teaching is sacred. And unless one listens to it with faith and devotion, the inner meaning of it will not be clear. So it's secret in that sense. So feel free to share it with my devotees. Again, it doesn't mean only Krishna devotees. My really means me is spirit. Krishna, when Krishna says I or me, it's the spirit. So all those, if you find any sincere seekers of truth, sincere speakers of spiritual life, feel free to share it with them. Not with the idea that you are teaching them something, but that the more we share and the more we are able to learn. So the exchange of ideas that occurs between spiritual seekers benefits both of them. So we should be willing to share and learn from the other person, because when we are sharing our understanding of the text with others. And the other person is interested in it, has also studied it, they might share their understanding. And then if there are any points which are different, then we can discuss about it. Not in order to prove that one is right, but to arrive at a better and clearer understanding of the Gita. And so Krishna says, one who does it has supreme devotion to me, is a real spiritual seeker, and being free from doubt, ultimately realizes God. 69. Nacha tasman manusyeshu kaschin me priyakrittamaha bhavita nacha me tasmat anyah priyataro bhuvi. There is none among men who does dearer service to me than he, nor will there be any, and there is none on earth dearer to me than he. So you can see how much importance Krishna gives in cultivating a spiritual community. A community is one in which every member of the community cares for the other, shares what they have found useful, beneficial, and is willing to receive or hear what the other member has to say. So this kind of a bonding that occurs among spiritual seekers is mutually beneficial to both of them. And that's why he says, people who have this kind of a close bonding, discussing spiritual matters among themselves, such are the people dear to Krishna. And there is no, and just see, he just praises them. There is no one dearer to Krishna than people who do it. So this itself is a part of our spiritual practice. Spiritual practice should not be limited to only some reading a few texts and then doing your private prayer and meditation every day. Because spirituality gets tested when we come in contact with other people. Spirituality gets tested when you are at your workplace, when you are doing work, when you are interacting with other people. That's when you know how much of what you have read, how much of what made sense to you intellectually, whether it can be tested in the marketplace, so to speak. Because otherwise, in the quiet confines of your room or if your home, you study this high philosophy, and then when you go out, while you are working, when you are meeting with your friends, relatives, and other people at your workplace, this teaching has no role to play at all, then that's pointless. And that's the reason Krishna is emphasizing that point here. Verse 70. Adhyeshyate chaya imam dharmyam samvadamavayoho Jnana yajnena tenaham ishtasyam iti me matihi. And he who will study this sacred dialogue between us will be sacrificing to me through the knowledge sacrifice. This is my opinion. Remember, in the earlier chapters, Krishna spoke about different kind of yajnas, different kind of worships. And among those worships, one was Jnana Yajna, worship through knowledge, through learning and imparting and sharing. So, the way Krishna describes yajna, or a kind of a worship, is a much, much broader definition of worship. Don't think of worship simply as going to a temple and using flowers and incense, and that's worship. That's one aspect of worship. But going out and helping those who are in need, looking upon them as a manifestation of the divine, that is also worship. So karma yoga is also a kind of worship. Reflecting on the teaching in the Gita, discussing it with your friends who are interested in it, sharing and learning from them, that is also a form of worship, a worship of knowledge, Jnana Yajna. And so that is what Krishna says. So consider this as a part of your spiritual practice. 71. Shraddhavan anasuyascha shrunuyadapi yo naraha sopi mukta shubham lokan prapnuyat punya karmanam. A person who merely hears the Gita with devotion and without cavilling shall be freed and attain the blessed spheres attained by people of righteous deeds. You can see, this is what I was telling you about, that the benefit of studying the Gita. So he says, people who merely hears the Gita with devotion and with just love in the heart, no hatred or no distrust, such a person will attain the higher spheres, there will be a spiritual progress, spiritual evolution in the heart of such a person. What he means is, of course, if you study it and try to understand the meaning and try to live according to it, of course you will make progress. But even if you just hear it with devotion, just hearing it with devotion also has benefits. Obviously, of course, in addition to hearing, you try to live according to it, practice it, you'll have more benefits. But what he's saying is that even a little bit of it is beneficial. What to speak of the much greater benefit that can come through a deeper study of the text. 72. Kacchidetat shrutam partha Tvayaiకాగ్రేణ చేతసా కచ్చిదజ్ఞాన సమ్మోహః pranashtaste dhananjaya. Have you listened to it, O Partha, with undivided attention? Has your delusion due to ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya? After having given the teaching, now Krishna wants to make sure. Remember, there was this confusion in the mind of Arjuna in the beginning, which is why this dialogue started. So after giving this teaching now, Krishna wants to make sure whether the purpose has been served. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that there are three kinds of doctors. The most ordinary kind of doctors, he said, are those, a patient comes, the doctor looks over and says, okay, here is this, I'll prescribe some medicine and you take it. And then just leaves and doesn't care whether you take it or not. If you don't call the doctor back, the doctor never hears from you again. You never hear back from the doctor like, hey, you came the other day, did anything happen? So if the doctor doesn't care, then according to Ramakrishna, this was way before the modern healthcare system came, so don't compare it with it today. And so he said this is the most ordinary doctor. Then he says, a better doctor would give the medicine and then inquire now and then. Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is that medicine working? And if you haven't taken it, I encourage you, say, no, no, it's not good. And so that's a better kind of a doctor. And then he said, the best kind of doctors, they will do, of course, they'll inquire. And if they find that you're not taking the medicine or you're not following the instruction, the doctor would come home personally when the medicine was given and take that medicine. Even if you refuse to take it, will forcibly make you open your mouth, put that pill in your mouth and make you drink the water. As I said, don't compare it with the modern system, but this is what Ramakrishna said. The idea was this, that if someone is truly loves me, is truly interested in me, then that person will want to make sure that I am being benefited by whatever it is that I am learning. So it would have been okay for Krishna to say, okay, this is your doubt, this is what I have to say, and just wait there. But he didn't do that. So he taught, he answered all of Arjuna's questions, and now he wants to make sure, has it worked? If Arjuna were to say, no, well, let's see what Arjuna says first. Verse 73. Arjuna uvacha nashto moha smritir labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta sthitosmi gata sandehaha karishye vachanam tava. Arjuna said, my delusion is destroyed and I have gained my memory. Through your grace, O Achyuta, I stand free from doubt. I will carry out your behest. So Arjuna makes it clear that his doubts are solved. And therefore, what had Arjuna said here, now I'm still confused, I still have more questions, then you would have had a few more chapters in the Gita. And so just as you are relieved that the Gita is coming to an end, Arjuna also was like, oh, finally the discourse has come to an end. I say that I'm jokingly, but what does it really mean when Arjuna says, my delusion is destroyed, I've gained my memory, I'm free from doubt. Now, taken literally, this come pretty close to the description of an enlightened being. While there are no doubts, delusion is completely gone, and the full memory has come. So here is a question that some people have asked. Did Arjuna become an enlightened being at the end of the teaching? Now, it's very difficult for unenlightened people to know from outside and say whether someone is enlightened or not. So the most accurate answer would be, we don't know. We can either take Arjuna at face value and say, well, he himself is saying his doubts are, delusion is gone, doubts are gone. So whatever I say now will be a pure guesswork, because whether Arjuna is illumined or not, only Arjuna knows. But it seems to me that he probably was not. That doesn't mean he was lying here. Sometime you will see that this has happened to me, and it may have happened to many amongst us. Sometimes you go with a doubt, a certain specific doubt to a teacher, and the teacher explains. But while the teacher gives a very profound, deep explanation, and my doubt goes. So my doubt has gone. So I want to know whether I should do this or I shouldn't do this. And I go and ask someone I trust. I say, I really don't know. Should I do this or that? Now, if that person explains to me, yeah, do this, or explains to me the underlying principles involved, and after listening to those principles, I feel, okay, now things are clear now. Now I know what I have to do. So I can legitimately say, well, this confusion in my head is gone now. I have no more doubt. I know what I have to do. And I go and do it. That does not mean that I have understood all the intricate reasoning involved of how that decision was arrived at. And remember, he's in the middle of a battlefield there. In fact, later on in the Mahabharata, the two meet again, obviously, Arjuna and Krishna, after the war is over. And that time, Arjuna goes to Krishna, which is why I'm pretty sure he wasn't enlightened. Because that time Arjuna tells Krishna, oh, before this war, I told you I didn't know what I should do, and you told me a lot of things. I don't remember, the heat of the battle. I was confused. Your words soothed me. It brought us a clarity. I knew that my duty was to fight, so my doubt about whether I should fight or not, that doubt was gone. But you told something very profound. I really don't remember any of it. Could you please tell that to me again? Now remember, Krishna was not teaching the Gita with the help of a book. Krishna was, he's teaching, so it was giving experience. So Krishna tells him, I don't remember either what I told you. But come on, Krishna didn't have a notebook or anything. Nothing was taped. And so what Krishna says is this, that it doesn't matter what you asked and what I told you, because you had a doubt and your doubt was solved. Now, the Arjuna before me is not the Arjuna of that time. The person is the same. But think about it this way. If someone were to ask you, are you the same person who I met 10 years ago? And what would you say? How would suppose a friend of yours you met 10 years ago, and for 10 years you didn't meet, and after 10 years the person says, oh, you are the same person I met 10 years ago? It's not easy to answer that question, because, well, you are the same person in a way, but you are also changed. Within those 10 years, you have had different experiences in life, you have learned something, or you have forgotten some other things. So you're not really the exact clone of that person that the person met 10 years ago. In that sense, you're not the same person. So what Krishna is telling Arjuna here is, the Arjuna before the battle was one Arjuna. Now after the battle, hopefully a little wiser by all of that, the one who is right before me is not exactly the same person. So whatever doubts you have now, if at all you have any confusion in your mind now, you ask me that, and I'll be happy to answer it. And so then Arjuna asks a question to Krishna. And obviously the question wasn't exactly identical with that, because after the war there wasn't any doubt about whether I should fight or not. But he asked this doubt to Krishna, and then Krishna answers him. Now that's a much shorter answer. That's actually a text of another book called Anu Gita. Anu means actually small. And so because it is small in size, it became known as Anu Gita. So the Gita that we are studying now, this is sometimes therefore called, to distinguish it from other Gitas, is called a Bhagavad Gita. And so Gita, when we normally, because this is the most popular text, when we say Gita, we normally understand this conversation that occurred between Krishna and Arjuna before the war. But oftentimes in the commentary, Shankaracharya, when he refers to the Gita, he always refers to it in the plural. It's the Gita literature. So there are many Gitas. So there is this Bhagavad Gita, then this other teaching that Krishna gave to Arjuna, it's called Anu Gita. There is another one, the teaching that Krishna gave to Uddhava when he came to take him from Vrindavan to Mathura. That's called Uddhava Gita. There is the conversation that occurs between Rama and Lakshmana in Ramayana, and that is sometimes called Rama Gita. So there are many Gita. There is a Devi Gita, and a few years ago, someone has also written a Ramakrishna Gita using the teachings of Ramakrishna in the same Sanskrit meter. So it's a vast literature. And so therefore, because of all of that, when Arjuna says, my delusion is destroyed, he is sincere, he is telling the truth, but that need not necessarily mean that the ultimate delusion has destroyed. Now that, and to some extent, we are all Arjunas in different forms. Not everyone who studies the Gita comes to it like, I want to become enlightened. Well, many do. But for many people, if you see the kind of books that are coming now, I've heard one person, I didn't hear the lecture, but I saw the title of a talk was Time Management According to the Gita. And so on. So there are people who have found now talks given to corporations and corporate, how those who want to learn ethical practices in business can find insights in the Gita. Now, clearly from the context, Krishna was not teaching Arjuna about business ethics or about time management. But that doesn't mean that people who are looking for those insights cannot be found here. So if I'm looking for, say, I have this conflict about ethics in social life, let me see if this book has anything to give me, and I will find it. I will find it and I can say, this book removed all my doubts. Again, not doubts about enlightenment or anything, it's about the kind of questions we have. So that's another important point to remember. It's a little bit like if we go to a lake to bring water from it, how much water we get will depend on how big a container we take. What would be the shape of the water would depend on the shape of the container, because the water will take the shape of the container in which it is filled. So the Gita is like a big lake. And we are all going with our own little containers to it. And our containers are the primary motive which makes me study this text. What are the kind of questions I have in my heart for which I'm seeking answers to it? And we will find answers depending on the kind of questions we have. So the benefit we get will depend on what I am seeking and what my ability is. An ability, as Krishna pointed out earlier, whether I have a sense of inner discipline, I have this faith, I have this love for God. If I have some of these basic qualities, I will benefit from this text and I will get whatever I'm looking for. That's what they say. All the answers to everything is right around us, but we only find what we are looking for. So that's essentially it. If your key is lying in the corner of your room, but if you're not looking for your key, you will not notice it. You will see it, but you will not notice it. It's a little bit like that. Verse 74. Sanjaya uvacha ityaham vasudevasya parthasya cha mahatmanaha samvadam imamashhrausham adbhutam romaharshanam. Sanjaya said, thus have I heard this wonderful dialogue between Vasudeva and the high-souled Partha that causes my hair to stand on end. Remember, this whole of the Gita is a dialogue within a dialogue. It's a dialogue going on between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, the blind king. And then within that dialogue is the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. And so here Sanjaya is describing his experience, that hearing this wonderful dialogue. And so now, Sanjaya has done it twice. First he has heard it fully, and now he has narrated it fully to the king. So he's already done one repetition, and he's already deriving the benefit from it. So he says, this causes my hair to stand on an end, means how thrilled I am to be able to listen to and then share these life-giving teachings of Krishna. 75. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyamaham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat kathayata svayam. Through the grace of Vyasa, I have heard the supreme and secret yoga direct from Sri Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, as he declared it himself. Now, this is the verse which has given rise to the popular idea that Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra are sitting in the capital. The king is blind, obviously, and hasn't gone therefore to fight. His sons are fighting there. And Sanjaya, who is one of the officials of that kingdom, is narrating the story to the blind king. And because it is said through the grace of Vyasa, I have heard this supreme dialogue, the popular idea is Vyasa gave this divine vision, Divya Drishti, to Sanjaya. So Sanjaya could see that, and then he's kind of giving a live commentary. But that's only a popular idea. That's not what the book Mahabharata says. According to the book, Sanjaya actually went to battle. He was fighting from the Kaurava side. So he was at the war, I think, went for 18 days. And on the 10th day of the war, the commander-in-chief of Kauravas, who was Bhishma, he fell down. That's when Arjuna's arrows, and you have this very dramatic scene in the text. Now, when the commander-in-chief fell down, Sanjaya ran back to the capital to inform the king, because obviously among the things, everyone was so dependent on Bhishma. And then when you have a commander-in-chief who has become non-functional, then you have to have somebody else take that place. So Sanjaya, who was at that battle for first 10 days, then runs back, and that is the time then, that's how the Gita begins, with the king asking him, what did my children do? Look at the tense there. If it was a live commentary, then the question would have been in the present tense. What are my children doing? What's happening? And then Sanjaya would have said, well, it's like sometimes you hear the live commentaries of sport commentators. They're actually using a present tense. So here you see throughout, Sanjaya has used a past tense. He doesn't say, now Duryodhana is coming. It's all in past. This is what Duryodhana did. Then they blew the conches. Everything is in a past tense. So it's not really a live commentary. So what does this mean then? To the grace of Vyasa, I've heard the supreme and secret yoga. Now, I really don't know what it means. My one guess here is that seeing the context, there are these hundreds and thousands of soldiers on either side. We don't know exactly where Sanjaya was located in that crowd. He was not in the same chariot because the charioteer was Krishna. And the teaching that Krishna gave to Arjuna, there was no way for Sanjaya to hear that unless he had gone like very close and was listening to it. So, if anything, it's possible that to however far Sanjaya was in that battle formation, he was able to hear it. And what Sanjaya is saying that the fact that he could hear it, it would not have been humanly possible for him to hear it. The fact that he was present there and was able to hear what dialogue occurred between the two occurred through the grace of Vyasa, who was one of the greatest teachers and also a very important figure in the story of the Mahabharata itself. So that's how it would be, I think, a better way, something closer that fits in with the rest of the story in the Mahabharata of how Vyasa's grace came to Sanjaya. So there's a little bit of ambiguity here. Verse 76. Rajan samspritya samspritya samvadam imamadbhutam keshavarjunayof punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu. O King, recalling often this wonderful and sacred dialogue between Keshava and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again. It's interesting to hear these words because remember, both Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra are on the opposite side. The dialogue is occurring between people known to them, but still they are on the other side. And so here, Sanjay is not bothered at all that this may hurt the king's feelings because he is really praising Arjuna, who is now the kind of enemy of these people. 77. Taccha samspritya samspritya rupamatyadbhutam harehe Vismayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha punah punaha. And as I repeatedly recall that most wonderful form of Hari, great is my wonder, O King, and I rejoice again and again. So thrilled is Sanjaya, even though it's an indirect hearing. It was not really addressed to him. Even hearing it indirectly, he's so thrilled. So you can imagine what effect it must have had on Arjuna, to whom this teaching was directly given. Verse 78. Yatra yogeshwarav Krishno Yatra partho dhanurdharaha Tatra shrir vijayo bhutihi Dhruva nitir matir mama. Where there is Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and where there is Partha, the wielder of the bow, there are sure fortune, victory, prosperity, and statesmanship. Such is my conviction. That's where the last verse in the Gita, this is what occurs. So what it concludes, Sanjaya concludes his narration to the king by saying that whichever side would be Krishna, he refers to the Lord of Yoga, and whichever side is Arjuna, the sincere, earnest seeker and the source of all knowledge, the source of all insight, whichever side there are, all of these things will come. So from this dialogue, if anyone seeks fortune, they will get it. From this dialogue, if anyone seeks victory, they will get it. Prosperity, statesmanship, all of these benefits, some related to social life, political life, and spiritual life. All of these benefits can come from people who not just hear these teachings, but try to take it to heart and live according to them. So that's how we cannot, but don't think that the Gita has ended. Sometimes, the temptation at this point is to say, we have finished the Gita. No, actually we can never finish the Gita. The Gita will be finished only when we, as spiritual seekers, the Gita will finish only when we have become enlightened. And when you have become enlightened, you will not need the Gita anymore. Unless and until we are enlightened, we need the Gita. And therefore, the tradition is that when you are reciting the Gita, when you come to the last verse, you don't end the recitation with the last verse. And so you once again read the first words of the first chapter. What that indicates, what that signals, is my intention that I will study this book again. I do not say that I have understood everything from it. I cannot say I have finished it. So this is proclaiming one's intention that I'm not saying that my study is finished, that I will continue to learn, I will continue to study further. So then let's recite the first words of the first chapter again. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakav pandavaschaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. There are many students of the Gita who have a habit of reciting a few verses of the Gita every day. Some people, if they have time, they do a chapter of the Gita every day. So if that's something you do or you would like to do, whenever you come towards the end of the text, after doing the last words of the last chapter, do once again the first words of the first chapter. So that's the tradition of the study, Gita study. So if you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, more specifically about the portion that we saw now, and if you don't have any, then feel free to ask any question about the rest of the Gita as well. But first about the portion that we studied today.
So Swami, Krishna mentions that those who hear the Gita will gain some benefits. Can you imagine in what ways did he think we would hear the Gita? Through classes, in temples and schools?
Well, first of all, you're hearing it with the intention of hearing it, but maybe you don't follow up on it. Maybe you don't try to consciously practice its teachings. So what is being said here is, even hearing of this teaching, just this sound of the teaching is purifying in itself. But that should not be a discouragement from practicing it.
But I mean, historically speaking as well, in what formats could you imagine him thinking that this song would travel through to us today?
Obviously, I mean, sometimes they say, the Vedas, for instance, the Vedas are in Sanskrit, and the sound of the Vedic mantras itself is considered so potent, so filled with power, that merely chanting those Vedic verses itself is said to give a great benefit. But they also say, if you chant those verses, understanding the meaning, you will have even greater benefit. And you chant it understanding the meaning and then try to live according to it, you'll have even greater benefit. So that's how it is, yeah. Yeah, Mahendra first and then you.
In the verse 70, Krishna says, last, this is my opinion. He's referred to that in number of times in the Gita and said, this is my opinion. How should one interpret that sort of...
well, that's his opinion.
It is. So he's sort of giving you the freedom to say, this is what I believe in.
Krishna, that's the bedrock of Vedanta is freedom. Nothing, there's no force applied. In fact, you will see pretty much towards the end, after giving this teaching, Krishna tells Arjuna that I have told you, now you do whatever you feel, okay. So So that's what, even what you can see throughout, he doesn't tell Arjuna. Arjuna has a doubt. And one would have thought, Arjuna has so much trust in you. Yeah, when Arjuna said, I don't think fighting is right, all that Krishna should have said was, just do it. We don't know what Arjuna would have done at that point. I think Arjuna would have argued, because until that point, Arjuna liked Krishna, but they were pretty much same age. They were cousins. And in the 11th chapter of the Gita, when Arjuna he sees this cosmic form, and he's just terrified. He's like, oh my God, all this time I thought you were just my cousin. And now I suddenly discovered you are someone much, much bigger and different and special. So we don't know. If right away, if Krishna had told Arjuna, just don't worry, I'll explain you later. Just fight. I don't know what would have happened. So it's just speculation. But yes, you can see throughout, Yathechasi tatha kuru, yatha ichchasi tatha kuru. So I have told you this, now whatever you feel appropriate, you do. So, and I like that very much. What it does is, it throws the whole responsibility on our shoulders. Because I then get to make a choice whether I should follow Krishna or not. Because otherwise, Krishna said, just do it. And something happens I don't like. It's like, because of you it happened. You told me to do it. And that's what most of us do most of the time. When things don't go well, how many of us are brave enough, courageous enough to say, I made a wrong choice? It needs a lot of courage to take responsibility. It's so much more easy to blame others. And so Vedanta always is about taking responsibility. Yeah, good.
Swamiji, you just said there are many Gitas, right? Not just Bhagavad Gita, there are other Gitas. So I was just wondering that the term Gita is everywhere. So does it have any specific meaning?
Oh yeah, Gita means that which, literally Gita means that which was sung.
It's
Sung, S-U-N-G.
Okay.
Yeah, past stage of sang. It's because it's a kind of poetic thing, so it is kind of a song that was, it's a teaching really, it's a teaching that was given, but literal meaning would be that which was sung. Sometimes people translate it as, in fact, there is one edition of the Gita. In English, they have put it called the Song of God. That's one way of understanding it, but if you want to a literal meaning, it's actually a verb. That which was sung. That is the idea. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other broad-ranging question about the Gita itself? Yeah, yeah.
So Swamiji, sometimes there's a tendency, at least I see in myself, that coming here, listening to the Gita and chanting, that somehow there's a kind of spiritual arrogance that I am better than people who don't do all of the above. Mm-hmm. So do you have advice on how to cultivate a sense of, I think one of the practices you mentioned...
Are better. No, let's put it this way. I don't think we need to devalue ourselves. It's clearly, this is a great teaching that you have interest in it. So in some ways, I think sincere seekers of truth are kind of special. By that I mean is that sincere spiritual seekers will always be an enlightened minority, I think. They'll always be. It will never have mass appeal. Religion itself, sometimes you can have thousands of people coming, but not all the thousands of people who are at a retreat or a lecture or any big movement are necessarily all speaking, oh, I want to get moksha. People come to religion for different reasons. A lot of people just come, it's like people who practice meditation. How many people who practice meditation do it with the idea of, oh, I want to become enlightened? Many people like, oh, someone told me I get a lot of stressed out, and so meditation kind of brings me some amount of peace. I'll get good sleep at night. In the 1960s or 70s, when transcendental meditation, TM, had popularized, one of the way it was marketed was, well, if you practice daily meditation, your high blood pressure, if you have high blood pressure, high BP, your BP levels will be normal, your heart will go in a better way. In general, the health benefits made people turn to meditation. So a lot of people who turn to meditation and prayer is because of these benefits, like yoga, for instance. So sincere seekers of teaching, that I want to know the Gita because the teaching resonates with me and I want moksha. Such people will always be a minority. And if someone has that level of interest in spiritual life, well, they are special. And it's a good feeling that I'm one of these enlightened minorities. Now, clearly, obviously, that should not automatically make me start looking at other people. Oh, these worldly people, they are so... That's harmful, because the more I start thinking that way, it's making me less fit for the study of the Gita. So the solution to that is not to think less of oneself, but not to think less of others. So if we look in our heart and find something good, it's okay to be happy about it. We don't have to say, oh, if I'm happy to see some good qualities, my ego will increase, and so I will just ignore the good qualities I have. I don't think that's necessary. In fact, it can be encouraging. You look within your heart and you find, all of us have some good capacities, talents, interests, good tendencies, positive spiritual tendencies. I think that's great. And if it makes you happy, I think don't deprive yourself of that happiness. But also, alongside that, we can also look in our heart and see, well, if I had only these spiritual qualities and nothing else, well, I would have been enlightened by now. If I'm not enlightened by now, it means that in addition to the good tendencies I have, I also have some weaknesses. I have some drawbacks. And so if I become aware of my drawbacks and weaknesses, I know now what I need to work on going forward. And if I work on these, I will have very little time then to pass judgment on the people around me. So I think that would be a better way. We need not suffer either from an inferiority complex or a superiority complex. We can just have be just a reality complex, if you like. I don't like reality complex. My favorite story about this, as I often mentioned to you, and some of you may have heard it 1,000 of times from me, was this a person who thought he had an inferiority complex, and he had certain tests run, and then his therapist told him, I have good news for you. You are not suffering from inferiority complex. You are inferior. So all that we need to do is just look in our heart and see, well, there is good and bad. Whatever good we find within, try to preserve it, because nothing is permanent. If I don't try to preserve what's good in my heart, I can lose it. And if I find something which is not so good, well, try to make it good. And if everyone tried to look in their own heart and try to do that, the world will be a much better place. The problem is, very few of us want to look within. And we don't want to look within because when we try to look within, what we see is not very pretty. It's not a very hopeful picture. And so instead of looking in, which is not so great, then I look out and then I start judging everything and everyone around me. And therefore, if anything, if the Gita will at the very least, will make me look in my heart and try to see what's going on here, and allow me to know myself better. Even before I understand God, even before I understand the Gita, I must first understand myself. Because the better understanding I have of me as a person, I'm not even speaking about the Atman or spiritual life or anything, just as a human being. Who am I as a human being? What do I want in life? What is the purpose of my life? Why do I do whatever it is that I do? If I'm studying the Gita, why am I studying the Gita? What do I expect to get out of it? What do I, now that I have studied a lot of it, what am I going to do with the insights that I have acquired? These are the kind of questions we should grapple with. I think that would be a more productive way. I think for spiritual seekers, the more time we spend cleaning up our own life, the less time and interest we will have in trying to go and reform the whole world. I think because reforming the world around, helping the world around is not a bad thing, but our ability to help others is directly proportional to our ability to help ourselves. If I cannot help myself, how can I help others? If I cannot reform myself, how can I reform others? And so that, I think, that's the kind of a message that comes to me from the Gita, in my opinion, like Krishna said. Yes.
Just small remark to this, whatever was said. Not what you told, I totally agree. I mean, that's it's very humbling experience. You look at the person, you dislike this person or disagree, but see, this is quality I don't have. This is such a good quality, this is such ability, such life skills. I don't have it, it's good to learn. So if I acknowledge this person have something I don't have, I don't know, I don't have mind for this. So it's already humbling. And this person doesn't study Gita, but it's not about even social success. She has some quality I don't have. I would like rather to have it.
That's true. That's very true. Tulsidas, the one who wrote this great version of Ramayana, in the beginning he says, I bow down to all the good people in the world and I bow down to all the bad people in the world. And then someone asked him, oh, why? I mean, you bow down to good people, you can understand. But why bow down to all the wicked people of the world? And then Tulsidas said, I bow down to all the good people of the world because looking at their life, I know how I should live. And I bow down to all the wicked people in the world because looking at their life, I know how I should not live. So everyone in the world can be our teacher. Even if we find people whom we hate or detest, well, say, well, look in their heart and say, well, I have to be careful. If I cultivate if my life becomes similar to theirs, I will be also hated as much as I hate them. So I think that kind of everything that we experience in life should take us back to our own true self. I think that would be helpful. So we will have to think of starting some new text next week, but before that, let's conclude with a prayer. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So next week, beginning next week in our Vedanta study group, I am thinking of doing one small Upanishad, because we have a summer recess coming up at the end of July, and so we I have only 5 or 6 classes remaining. So I don't want to start any big text, then we won't be able to finish, and then there's going to be the big gap in the middle. So, so there is this small Upanishad called Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which has only, I believe, 22 or 24 verses. And I think that's something that we will be able to do before we close for the recess. So that's what we will do next week. If you have access to the center's Facebook page, I will try to put the text and the translation in the notes section of that. If you have no access to the Facebook page, you can email me, and I can email you the text so you can print it out and bring it next week. So that's our program going forward for the Wednesday classes. For Sunday Satsang, we have a guest speaker this Sunday, Professor Jeffrey Long of Elizabethtown College. He will share his insights on reflections on rebirth and religious pluralism. So I would encourage you all to come for the Satsang on Sunday. And on Tuesday and Saturday, our Arati and meditation will also continue as usual. Let's conclude with a prayer now on page 3. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.